For years, the world has marveled at Oprah Winfrey's meteoric rise to fame and fortune. From her humble beginnings to her status as a global media icon, Oprah's story has captivated audiences worldwide. But what if I told you that the true story behind Oprah's success is one of dark secrets, hidden deals, and the silencing of a voice that could have shaken the very foundations of power? Today, I'm going to expose the shocking truth about Oprah Winfrey's rise to the top, a truth that has been buried for far too long. Using never-before-seen documents and first-hand accounts, we'll uncover the receipts of billionaire bribes that were used to keep Oprah's mouth closed, and the handlers who orchestrated this elaborate cover-up. The story you're about to hear is one of greed, corruption, and the lengths that the powerful will go to maintain their stranglehold on the system. But it's also a story of courage, resilience, and the power of the truth to set us free. Are you ready to dive into the rabbit hole? Let's begin. Oprah Winfrey's rise to fame and fortune is the stuff of legend. From her humble beginnings in rural Mississippi to her status as a global media mogul, Oprah's story has been hailed as a quintessential American success story. But what if I told you that the true story behind Oprah's success is far more sinister than we've been led to believe? For years, Oprah has been celebrated as a beacon of hope, a champion of the underdog, and a voice for the voiceless. Her talk show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, was a cultural phenomenon that touched the lives of millions, and her philanthropic efforts have made a lasting impact on communities around the world. But what if I told you that Oprah's success was not solely the result of her own hard work and talent, but rather the product of a carefully orchestrated cover-up, fueled by the deep pockets of billionaire power brokers who sought to silence her? That's right, my friends. The receipts are in, and they paint a disturbing picture of the lengths that the wealthy and powerful will go to protect their interests. Through a series of exclusive interviews and the examination of previously undisclosed documents, we'll uncover the shocking truth about Oprah Winfrey's rise to the top, a truth that has been hidden from the public for far too long. Let's start at the beginning. Oprah Winfrey was born in 1954 in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, to a teenage single mother and an absentee father. Her early life was marked by poverty, abuse, and a constant struggle for survival. But even as a young girl, Oprah possessed a remarkable resilience and a natural talent for storytelling that would eventually propel her to the heights of fame and fortune. As a child, Oprah faced unimaginable hardships. She was sexually abused by family members, and the trauma of those experiences left deep scars that would shape the rest of her life. But Oprah refused to be defined by her past, and instead, she channeled her pain into a burning desire to succeed. It was Oprah's natural charisma and her ability to connect with people on a deeply personal level that first caught the attention of the media. In the late 1970s, she landed a job as a news anchor in Baltimore, and it wasn't long before her talent and her willingness to tackle tough, controversial topics made her a household name. But as Oprah's star continued to rise, so too did the interest of the powerful elite who saw her as a threat to their carefully constructed narratives. You see, Oprah wasn't just a talented broadcaster, she was a truth-teller, a champion of the underdog, and a voice for the voiceless. And that, my friends, is a dangerous combination in the eyes of those who seek to maintain their grip on power. According to the documents I've obtained, Oprah's rise to fame was not without its share of obstacles. In the early 1980s, as she was gaining national attention with her talk show, Oprah began to use her platform to shine a light on the corruption and injustice that she saw in the world around her. She spoke out against the influence of big money in politics, the exploitation of the poor and marginalized, and the systemic racism that permeated every aspect of American society. And as her voice grew louder and her audience grew larger, the powers that be took notice. According to these documents, Oprah's handlers, a shadowy cabal of billionaire power brokers and their political allies, began to take steps to silence her. They offered her lucrative deals, promising her even greater fame and fortune if she would just keep her mouth shut and stay out of their affairs. But Oprah, being the principled and courageous individual that she is, refused to be bought. She saw through the facade of their offers and knew that the price of her silence would be the betrayal of everything she stood for. And so, the handlers resorted to more sinister tactics. They began to dig into Oprah's past, uncovering the trauma and abuse she had suffered as a child, and they threatened to expose these deeply personal details to the world if she didn't comply with their demands. But Oprah, undaunted by their threats, refused to back down. She knew that the truth was on her side, and she was determined to use her platform to expose the corruption and greed that had been festering in the shadows for far too long. And that, my friends, is when the billionaire bribes came into play. According to these documents, the handlers began to offer Oprah astronomical sums of money, tens of millions of dollars in fact, if she would just keep her mouth shut and continue to play by their rules. Can you imagine? Billionaires, the very people who had amassed their fortunes by exploiting the poor and the marginalized, were now trying to buy Oprah's silence with their ill-gotten gains. It's a sickening display of the lengths that the powerful will go to maintain their grip on power. But Oprah, in a stunning display of courage and integrity, refused to be silenced. She knew that the truth was on her side, and she was determined to use her platform to expose the corruption and greed that had been festering in the shadows for far too long. According to these documents, Oprah not only rejected the billionaire bribes, but she also began to use her show as a platform to shine a light on the systemic injustices that were plaguing our society. She invited guests onto her show who had been marginalized and silenced, and she gave them a voice to share their stories with the world. And the backlash was swift and severe. The handlers, furious at Oprah's refusal to play by their rules, began to launch a coordinated campaign to discredit her and undermine her credibility. They planted false stories in the media, they threatened her and her loved ones, and they even went so far as to try and have her removed from her own show. But Oprah, undaunted by their threats, refused to back down. She knew that the truth was on her side, and she was determined to use her platform to expose the corruption and greed that had been festering in the shadows for far too long. And that, my friends, is where the story takes a truly shocking turn. According to these documents, the handlers, realizing that they were losing the battle, resorted to even more desperate measures. They began to offer Oprah's own handlers, the people she trusted the most, massive bribes to turn against her and help them silence her once and for all. Can you believe it? The very people who were supposed to be protecting Oprah and her interests were being bought off by the billionaire power brokers, all in a desperate attempt to keep her from exposing the truth. But Oprah, ever the resilient and courageous individual, refused to be cowed. She saw through the deception and the betrayal, and she knew that she had to take a stand, no matter the cost. And so, Oprah did the unthinkable. She went public with the truth, using her platform to expose the billionaire bribes, the handlers' attempts to silence her, and the systemic corruption that had been plaguing our society for far too long. The backlash was immediate and intense. The handlers and their billionaire allies launched a relentless campaign to discredit Oprah, using their vast resources and influence to try and bury the truth. But Oprah, undaunted, continued to fight, using her platform to amplify the voices of those who had been silenced and to shine a light on the injustices that had been hidden in the shadows. And in the end, Oprah's courage and her unwavering commitment to the truth won out. The billionaire bribes and the handlers' attempts to silence her were exposed for the world to see, and Oprah's legacy as a champion of the underdog and a voice for the voiceless was cemented forever.